Today is a special day for Singapore because Singapore actually went into a circuit breaker period since the 7th of April to about 1st, 2nd of June. Certainly quite different an atmosphere as I was walking outside before coming over to my center and then to set things up for my training and for my sessions. I realized that the mood was a little different. People were dining in, but still, yet they were observing some new things. It's in a way like a new normal. We decided to change our habits, and now there's the mask wearing, there's the other precautions, social distancing to make sure that individuals they play their part to help stem the spread of COVID-19. This is from Angel Lee. The question is, Darren, how do you put across humorous speeches in different settings? For example, in a more serious setting like speaking with CEOs, and in a more informal setting like speaking with your friends and with your colleagues. So thank you very much, Angel, for your question. I would say when it comes to humorous speeches for different occasions, you need to be quite mindful of a few things. One, humor works very well when there's a change in expectation. It's like when there's a setup and there's momentum that's being built. When your audience members' expectations are being set in a certain way, you then derail the train of thought, and that's the one that's going to create the laughter. We call it a punchline or a punch word. So that's one thing to take note of. Now, how do you make it appropriate for the people that you're speaking with? First and foremost, understand that there are people that you're speaking with anyway, whether they are CEOs or whether they are your friends or whether they are perhaps colleagues of yours. So, which is why I would say, regardless, know that they are humans. And for humans, there are certain common denominators when it comes to humor. Like, for example, the punchline or the punch word, which is derailing the expectations. Like, don't step on their laughter so that they are able to finish laughing. You're able to allow the impact of the laughter to come in full. The other one would be making references that are still sensitive to the emotions as well as to the culture of the group that you're speaking with. So those are common denominators. But I suppose the main part about your question is, how can you apply in different settings? So what are some of the differences there? Well, I would say there are a few things to take note of. The first one would be, when it comes to speaking with perhaps say CEOs, we need to be, or maybe senior management staff, we need to be a little bit more mindful as to perhaps time, which is an important factor. And the other one would be sensitivities and references. Now let's talk about time. When it comes to time, it really refers to the time allowed for your setup. If say like you're speaking with a group of CEOs or you're speaking with senior management individuals, time is usually of the essence, and you might not have the luxury of time to be able to have a longer setup or longer build up or perhaps to build rapport. So usually some individuals will do the rapport building before the session, before the main business presentation, and then to insert the humorous point. Some individuals, what they will do is that they will do a very quick setup and then a punch. Now, in order to do a quick setup and a punch, I wouldn't want to go into the technicalities there, but to do a quick setup and a punch, what you want to do is you would want to use either exaggeration, a technique, because that's one of a humorous technique, and the other one would be a daily observation, something that often people get to see. The other thing other than time would be, I would say, sensitivities, because there are certain things that when it's in the business setting, certain things that you cannot say due to confidentiality issues. There are certain things in which perhaps it might hit a raw spot. So you need to be extra sensitive. And these are not exactly the group that you might easily find what are some of the do's and don'ts, the very clear OB markers. That means the out-of-bound markers. So what you want to do is check beforehand, either be part of a meeting or a training session or a discussion session with them, and to find out what's the style, like what's the rough context. Feel free to speak with the people there. So it's a lot of the homework that people think is just going out there and giving humor, but it's a lot of the behind the scenes work. The final one would be perhaps some form of sensitivities that is a little bit more personal. So knowing the person helps, but also at the same time knowing the company's culture, knowing who the competitors are, knowing who are the customers that they serve, knowing what are some of the down and dark moments that the company went through, so it will better inform you as to whether or not certain things are appropriate to say. Yep. Now, as for friends and colleagues, the time built up will be very much different. Plus, at the same time, what I would say is the common understanding of certain issues might be stronger. Where if you're speaking with friends and colleagues, the shared experiences with your friends and your colleagues, you might see more overlaps as compared to perhaps with CEOs or with senior management staff, that in terms of your encounters or interaction with them might not be that frequent. So I would suppose for that part, it will be easier for you to find that overlap because daily observation is something which for humor is very useful. Let me give you an example to make this more concrete. This usually takes me hours just to illustrate and help my clients apply in a manner that they can do so effectively. But we don't have that much time today. Just quickly illustrate. Daily observation would be something like if something that you see happening and you find that it's funny, you note it down. For instance, in Singapore, we have this observation, which is that individuals, when they take the train, sometimes when they meet someone that they know, the person would often remark, it's just like a casual greeting, but it's a little weird. So why I say little weird is because it's one where most people would think that it's a bit of a no-brainer, isn't it obvious kind of question. For instance, if someone is waiting for a train and you look at the person and hey, long time no see, waiting for a train, is it? I mean, obviously the person is waiting for a train, right? I mean, what else could the person be waiting for? Waiting for a plane, is it? Cannot be. So, but these are the funny moments because these are the things and the moments that people can relate to easily. So we want to include that in your humor bank so that when you pull it out, it's easier for you to piece it together, whether it's in a comedy routine or whether it's in a form of a presentation. Sounds good? Sometimes when I speak, I get a mental block. This is from Amit Kumar. Thank you, Amit, for your question. I get a mental block and I can't find what to express. So how do I resolve this issue? You see, what happens when there's a mental block, there are a couple of ways to potentially recover. In fact, it really depends on the occasion. It also depends on the context. But let's just talk about general principles, shall we? Let me just share with you two very quick ways to recover. When it comes to having a mental block and not knowing what to express, assuming that you are in a position where you could get the audience members to discuss, meaning either you are a keynote speaker or you are a workshop trainer, or perhaps you are a facilitator. What you could then do is then turn to the audience members and get the audience members into a quick discussion session. Tell the audience members that, all right, before we proceed any further, before I share with you some of my thoughts on this particular matter, let's just have you share with the person to your left and to your right, what's your take on this particular issue? Let's just take 2 quick minutes, and after which I'll just get some of you to also share, and then we will see if we can synthesize some of the learning points. Your 2 minutes starts now. So you get the audience members to work on these 2 minutes of a discussion. And this precious 2 minutes allow you to either go back to your notes, to go back to say some of your cue cards, to take a look and remind yourself what's the next point that you're going to say. So that's one way to recover. Another way to recover from a mental block is right from the get-go, you would want to better prepare yourself for it to help minimize the chances of having a mental block. Because when we say a mental block, how does it happen? It's really pre-speech and during speech. So during speech, I've shared with you one such way. But pre-speech means that before that, what can you do to prepare yourself better? One good way is instead of just memorizing, you see, when you have a speech in full, like from top to end, you start memorizing from top to end, verbatim, meaning word for word, it's not as effective because the moment you forget one line in the middle, your mind struggles to think of what that line is. And because without that line, you won't know what comes next. So what you want to do is one of two ways. Number one, either remember your points in point form so that you can speak extemporaneously. The thing about speaking extemporaneously is that you're just writing your points in point form, the main ideas, so that when you look at it, you will be able to still deliver. The thing is, each of the delivery is likely to differ. It's likely to differ in terms of the choice of words, even though there might be significant overlap. The other area would be, instead of just memorizing from top to end, split your speech into 4 to 5 relevant parts. And what you will do is that you will then proceed to memorize and internalize each of the individual parts. Maybe get a good friend to sit right at the end of the room and then shout the different parts, the numbers of the different parts, and maybe go to part 3. So you start remembering from part 3 to the end. Or go to part 2, you start going from part 2 to the end. Then after that, go to part 5, you start from part 5 to the end. In the next 1.5 hours, you find yourself really understanding the speech much better. You will know what are the areas that tend to trip you up. And also at the same time, you will find yourself in the event you're like in the middle of part 2 and you forget what else is in part 2, you can still go over to part 3, and trust me, a lot of the audience members don't even know how part 2 ends because you're in full control of your speech. So that's one thing to take note of. Sounds good? Okay. Question, this is about how do you overcome the autopilot approach during long presentation. I love this question. Now, why do I love this question is because autopilot approach, it conjures up a lot of different ideas. How do we overcome the overpilot approach? Here, probably I can sense that the particular questioner has perhaps delivered this presentation for many, many times. And after delivering it for many, many times, this presentation is not helpful that it's not just a 15 minutes presentation, but it could be a full day training. Here's the thing, a lot of my friends ask me, Darren, how is it that you can conduct your training sessions and you can clock in the repetition, you can do it over and over and over again, you can do multiple runs of your public speaking training, whether it's business mastery, whether it's your kids training. How do you exactly live with that without getting bored with repeating something? Now, here's the thing. Because I'm speaking extemporaneously, each of the time that I speak is a slightly different version with a different choice of words. 3 things make it engaging for me to make me not go on autopilot. Or rather, I should say, to make each time, even though it's like repeating the topic, it's still refreshing for me, it's still refreshing for the audience. Number 1 is to always be mindful that every single audience, every single moment is a new moment. When you have the idea that every single moment is a new moment, what this means then is that you are gunning for a different, perhaps potentially different reaction. You're potentially gunning for a different degree in terms of the laughter. You're gunning it perhaps in terms of slight difference in terms of the questions that they're asking in the Q&A. So you could potentially see it in that way, and that certainly helps make it more fun for you. And when it's more fun for you, it's likely to translate into more fun for the audience. Number 2, toss in a Q&A moment. Because when you toss in a Q&A moment for a long presentation, what you could potentially do then is to get the audience members to be at the steering wheel for a while, to then share with you certain questions, and there would be then variety and creativity there. So have fun answering those questions and take those moments in. If you have already indeed, as what you said, clocked in that many number of repetitions, then pretty much you should be quite good in terms of the content, quite good in terms of the delivery, polished enough to be able to take on, say, impromptu Q&A. And the third one would be see if there are any ways you can improve the presentation after each run. That's really going to make you not go on autopilot. Why? Because when you take note of, okay, after this presentation, this is one thing that I can potentially change. This is one way that I can say it better. Maybe I could include a GIF in my presentation slide so that make it a little bit more animated. So these are things that I change. Like for instance, I conduct the weekly kids training. I do the same content deck 4 times every single week. Can you imagine? 4 times every single week. But what I do each time round, because it's a different crowd, is the first group, I'll always think of what's another thing that I can make it better. Second group, I'll think of then what is another thing I can make it better after incorporating the first area for improvement. The third group, after I incorporated the area for improvement or areas for improvement, then I will think what's something I can do even better. And I noticed that the final version becomes even more polished, and that's something that I can take it either to publish a new chapter of my book, or perhaps to create a new video series, and it certainly makes the entire process way more fun. So really, really consider this particular approach. Sounds good?